$200. Maybe. The roadside lot at the Asheville Heritage Motor Museum, 4:42 on a Friday in October. Wesley Holloway cut the engine of a faded red 1967 Mustang and stepped out. Frayed flannel, oiled jeans, cracked boots. Adeline Brookhart stopped a step in front of him. White silk dress, sharp eyes. This wreck. How much did you pay? Wes shut the door. $200. She laughed. Walked up. Tapped 3 fingers on the hood. Knock, knock, knock. You overpaid. Wes did not move. He just watched her hand on the paint his father had mixed. Monday morning. Wes drove back to the museum to drop off an application for a part-time restoration technician position. He had filed the paperwork 3 weeks earlier on Marge's encouragement, and the follow-up was just a courtesy. At the front desk he overheard 2 young staffers laughing about a story from the weekend. Larry Cathwood, the chairman of the advisory board, had filmed the Mustang on Friday and dropped the clip into the board chat. The caption read, "Exhibit B, Why We Need to Raise Admission Prices." The younger one snorted into her coffee. The other glanced over and stopped when she realized Wes might be the man in the video. Wes wore the same flannel. The same boots. He had not changed clothes to impress anyone. He had come as the man he was. Adeline came down the corridor. Today a stiff white blazer, the kind a person buys when they expect to be photographed. She recognized him from Friday and paused. She did not apologize. She just looked slightly off balance, and asked what he needed. He handed her the application. She glanced at it. Holloway Garage, Black Mountain, 17 years experience. Trained under Daniel Holloway, 1996 to 2019, no degree. No marquee references. She told him politely they would be in touch. In her head she had decided no. Marge appeared behind the desk and watched Adeline carry the file away. When Adeline was out of earshot, Marge said quietly, "Don't judge that man by the car, or by the clothes." Adeline turned back, surprised. "You know him?" "I knew his father." Adeline gave a small, indulgent smile. "He's just a Black Mountain guy." Marge did not answer. She turned away. Wes left the museum. On his way to the lot he passed the spot where Adeline's fingers had tapped the hood. He stopped. He took the rag from his back pocket, an old cloth washed clean, and wiped that exact patch of paint. Not to erase her. To return the car to the silence it deserved. That evening Adeline opened a message from the Pinehurst Classic Auction. Larry had registered the museum and pitched a humorous opening, inviting the cheapest car in the lot up onto the floor. In Black Mountain, Wes pulled into his garage. He stood alone in the smell of old grease and old wood. He walked one slow circle around the Mustang, the way his father used to walk a car before he picked up a wrench. He laid one hand on the hood, where her fingers had been. He spoke softly. "Dad. Somebody just laughed at your car." Only the buzz of the fluorescent answered. He sat down on the stool his father had sat on for 40 years. He looked up at the wall where the wrench set still hung in the order Daniel had left them. He thought about the choice. Sell the car. Stay quiet. Keep going. Or carry it into the light and stand in front of a room ready to laugh. He stood up, killed the lights, locked the door. Before he left he stopped in front of the framed photograph by the door. Daniel, 1973, beside the first Packard he ever restored. In the picture his father wore a frayed flannel and dust-bitten jeans. "I'll think about it," Wes said. "I'll think about what to do." The last light went out. The garage went dark, except for the street lamp glow on the red Mustang waiting at the window. Wednesday. Wes was halfway under a customer's transmission when his phone rang. The principal of Black Mountain Elementary. Maple had been mocked at recess for having a father who drove a junk car and wore torn clothes. Wes drove to the school with both hands tight on the wheel. He was angry at the way a sentence from a parking lot on Friday had traveled through a board chat, a family dinner, into the playground of his daughter, all in 5 days. He found her in the hallway. 7 years old, brown hair in a ponytail, the wool bracelet her mother Eleanor had knitted still on her wrist. Hands knotted in her lap. Sneakers swinging. When she saw him she did not cry. She got up, walked over, and wrapped her arms around his leg. He crouched. He wiped a dried tear with his thumb. The thumb had grease on it. She did not mind. He did not ask if she was all right. He just said, "Come with Dad." He thanked the principal and carried her out. On the drive home he turned the radio low to the classical station Maple liked, the one Eleanor had played every morning. Maple sat quiet, fingers worrying the wool. She said, "Daddy, can we sell the car? Or buy you new clothes?" So they stopped laughing. He stopped at the red light. He stayed longer than the green needed. Her question did not wound his pride. It opened the ache of watching a child begin to believe her father needed to change in order to be respected. "Maple. These are the clothes I wore when I worked with your grandpa. This is the last car your grandpa ever finished. Neither needs to change." But people laugh. People laugh when they haven't looked carefully. He drove past the turn for the house and went straight to the garage. He raised the Mustang on the lift. Sat her on the stool that had been her grandfather's. Put a small flashlight in her hand. "Light the spot for Dad." She held the flashlight very seriously. Wes slid under and ran his hand along the rear axle housing. He wiped a layer of old grease away. There, the size of a fingertip, a stamp pressed into the metal. DH-2018-47/47. His father's signature, with a number that said this was the 47th and final restoration of his life. Among American collectors, every car carrying that stamp was valued at 6 figures. Wes sat on the concrete. Maple lowered the beam to the spot he pointed at, DH-47/47. "What is it, Daddy?" "It's Grandpa's signature. It's how he said, I made this, I made it with all of me," she thought. So Grandpa is still under the car? He needed a moment. In a way. Yes. He took out his phone. There was a number he had never dialed. Charles Vandermeer. He put the phone away. At the museum, Adeline reopened the application. Her eye caught on the line, "Trained under Daniel Holloway." She typed the name. Haggerty Lifetime Achievement Award, 2017. She called Marge. Marge said, "Go see him. Before Larry turns this into a joke at Pinehurst." Adeline drove to Black Mountain that afternoon. She stepped down still in the white dress. Maple looked up first. Not her father. She recognized the voice from the Friday lot. "I came to see the car." Wes wiped his hands. "To buy? Or to laugh?" She did not answer. She walked in. That night a notification reached her phone. Larry had officially listed the Mustang as a comedic exhibit for next Saturday. Withdrawal deadline, 48 hours. Adeline walked the length of the Mustang. White cotton gloves on her hands, a reflex from the trade. Wes did not stop her. He sat on the stool and watched. Maple sat 2 paces back, the flashlight in her lap, eyes never leaving Adeline. She studied this woman the way a child studies a strange animal. Not afraid. Measuring. Adeline lifted the hood. She caught it at once. The block was not standard production. It was a 289 Vate, hand-balanced, tuned with a patience she rarely saw outside a museum bay. She looked up. "Who did this work?" "My father." "Is he still alive?" "No." She moved on. She opened the door and ran her hand along the upholstery. Connolly leather, the kind that stopped being made in 2002. Maple stepped closer. She stood beside her father, one small hand gripping the hem of his flannel, the same frayed hem Adeline had judged on Friday. "Did you laugh at my dad's car? Did you laugh at his shirt?" Adeline straightened up. A 7-year-old had landed a strike no board member ever had. "Yes. To both." "I'm sorry." Maple waited. She gave a small nod and looked at her father, waiting for a signal. Wes set a hand on her shoulder. "Go on up and wash your hands, honey. Let me talk to her a minute." Maple did not hurry. She passed Adeline, paused, and held out the flashlight. "If you need to look at anything, take it." She walked into the house. Adeline held the flashlight, not knowing where to set it down. Something gave way inside her, not exactly guilt, more like permission. A child had handed her a tool. She turned to Wes. "Why did you apply at my museum? You could work for anyone." Because my daughter's school is close. I wanted to be the one who picks her up. The simplicity left her without a reply. She asked about the car. The technical work. He answered briefly and exactly. Numbers. Bolt grades. The paint sequence, 5 layers of phenolic primer and 7 of acrylic enamel. She understood. He was not a mechanic. He was the student of a master. She asked about the line in his file. M.I.T. I did 2 years and left. My father had Parkinson's. I came home. She sat on the stool across from him. For the first time she was not the museum director. She was a woman in a white dress in a garage that smelled of grease, suddenly aware her hem would be soiled and no longer caring. She told him quietly about Pinehurst. She asked if he wanted to withdraw. He thought a long time. He looked toward the upstairs window, where Maple's small shape stood pouring milk, not looking down but not stepping away. No. I'll bring the car. Why? He looked at his daughter through the glass. Because there's a child up there. Sooner or later she's going to ask me. Were you scared? I'd like the answer to be no. Adeline left near dark. She looked down at her dress. There was a small stain of grease on the hem. She did not wipe it. She turned back. Do you have any contact in the collector world? He hesitated. Yes. Charles Vandermeer. She froze. Vandermeer was a Pebble Beach judge. You know him? My father did. She drove back to Asheville in silence. Every assumption she had made about Wesley Holloway was rearranging itself, and along with it, the image of a small girl with a flashlight standing beside her father. The next morning Larry called an emergency meeting. Adeline was invited. She had no vote. He laid out his plan. The American Working Class Vehicles Collection, 32 cars at $4.2 million, should be sold to fund expansion of the European Luxury Heritage Wing, an area in which Larry had ties. Adeline pushed back. The working class collection was the soul of the museum, the Appalachian heritage they were chartered to protect. Larry smiled. Adeline. You're emotional because of one mechanic in Black Mountain. That isn't how a $14 million institution is run. A board member glanced at her with the soft pity of someone watching a colleague misstep. After the meeting Larry caught her in the hallway. He spoke low. I hear you've been driving out to Black Mountain. To see Holloway. Be careful, Adeline. Your contract comes up in January. She felt the cold of it. Larry did not just dislike Wes. Larry knew something about him she did not. She went to her office and asked for Marge. Marge sat across from her. In 2007, Larry tried to buy out Daniel Holloway's shop at a forced price. Daniel refused. Publicly. At the Haggerty Conference in Detroit. In front of 400 people, he has never let it go. So now he's settling that on a 7-year-old. He's settling it on a name. And on a flannel shirt. Adeline sat down. She, with her white dress and Yale degree, had prejudged Wes the same way Larry had. The only difference was that she had no grudge driving her. Just the laziness of someone used to reading the surface. That evening, she called Wes for the first time. The phone, not email. He answered in the garage. Maple was on the floor beside him, drawing a red car in colored pencil, copying the number 47 onto its undercarriage. Beside the car she had drawn a stick figure in a green striped flannel. Her father. I need to know. Are you sure? I'm sure about the car. I'm not sure about the room. Then I need you to trust me. One thing. A long silence. What? Let me call Charles Vandermeer for you. He thought. Maple looked up at him, not hearing the woman on the line, but hearing the silence in her father, and waiting. Okay, he said. The call ended. He sat with the phone in his hand for a long time. Maple looked up. Daddy. Do you like that lady? He startled. Why are you asking that? Because when you talk to her, your voice gets smaller than usual. He bent over her drawing. He pointed at a stick figure in a dress beside the red car. And who is this? Don't know yet. I drew her in case I need her. He looked at his daughter for a long time. Maple. Miss Brookhart may come around the house a few more times. Are you okay with that? She considered it as gravely as an adult considers a large decision. She already said sorry. About the car. About the shirt. So that's okay. He smiled. The first smile of the week. He folded the drawing and pinned it to the garage wall, beside his father's photograph. Late that night, after Maple was asleep, he sat alone on the porch. He spoke under his breath to Eleanor, the way he had on every hard night. Don't worry, sweetheart, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just letting a woman stand a little closer to our girl. 3 days before the auction. Adeline called Charles Vandermeer from her private line. She named Daniel Holloway and the Mustang stamped 47/47. Vandermeer was quiet for a few seconds. You're sure about the number? I saw the stamp. I'll be there. He hung up. Adeline sat very still. She did not know what she had set into motion. She knew only that it was larger than her. Over the 3 days Wes and Adeline saw each other twice. Once at the garage, to walk through the car a final time. Once at a small coffee shop in Black Mountain. At the coffee shop Maple came along. Today Adeline had not chosen white. She wore a soft green sweater. She had picked it carefully. Maple noticed at once. She did not say anything. She just sat closer to Adeline than the time before. Maple chose to sit between the two adults. Not on her father's side. Not on Adeline's. A small but deliberate decision. She cut a chocolate cake into 3 even pieces with her fork. The biggest for her father. Hers and Adeline's, equal. Wes watched the way his daughter divided the cake. He understood the message Maple herself had perhaps not fully understood. You are being added to my list. He asked Adeline about her work. She talked about her dissertation, about material memory in American craft objects. He listened. When she finished he said, my father would have liked the way you talk. She blushed a little. Maple cut in. Miss Brookhart, do you draw? Not well. I write. Then will you write me a story? Adeline laughed. The first true laugh in months. I'll try. Maple nodded, satisfied, and finished her piece of cake. Then, do you remember what Daddy was wearing on Friday? Adeline went still. I remember. Do you remember what he's wearing today? Adeline looked at Wes. The same frayed flannel. The same oil-stained jeans. The same. Right. He always wears it. Because he's my dad. A 7-year-old sentence. Not emotional. Just true. Wes turned his face toward the window. He did not let his daughter see how much that line had moved him. On the drive home Maple slept against the door. Wes drove slowly. He remembered something his father had said, more than once. A man who restores a car is not a man who makes the car beautiful. He is a man who lets the car be seen for what it always was. He brushed a strand of hair off her forehead. She murmured. Red car. He smiled in the dark. That same afternoon, Marge called Adeline into the records room. She had pulled an internal file from 2007. Larry had killed the proposal for a Daniel Holloway Scholarship for Young Restorers, a program Marge herself had drafted in the months after Daniel's death. Larry didn't only resent Daniel. He quietly removed Daniel's name from this museum's history. Adeline took the file. She could not just save a car. She had to restore a name. The night before Pinehurst, Wes opened a wooden box from his father's workbench. Inside, the keys to the Mustang, a black and white photograph from 1973 of his father in a flannel shirt, jeans, and cracked boots, and a folded note in Daniel's handwriting. For Wes, when you're ready to let it speak. He held the keys for a long time. For the first time in 6 years, he wept. Saturday, 7 in the evening. The Pinehurst Hall held 280 guests. Yellow chandelier light. Polished wood. Women in evening gowns, men in tuxedos. Larry sat in the front row, smiling at the board members beside him. Adeline stood behind the podium in a simple black dress. Not white. She had chosen it on purpose. Wes wore a clean gray shirt and dark slacks. The same old boots. He had bought nothing new. He had come as the man he was, with one added layer of respect for the room. Maple sat with Marge in the side row, in a navy dress, with a red ribbon in her hair, the color of the Mustang. The MC began. Our special opening lot. Listed by the owner at, I'm told, $200. Laughter rolled through the hall. Heads turned toward Wes. People sized up his shirt and laughed a second time. Larry looked back at Adeline with the satisfaction of a man who had won early. Wes did not react. He stood still. In the side row, Maple gripped Marge's hand. She heard the laughter. The MC raised his gavel to open the bidding at $200. From the back row a deep voice cut him off. 20,000. The room turned. Charles Vandermeer rose from the last row. White hair. Gray suit. No guest credential at his lapel. No one had seen him come in. The MC froze. Adeline stopped breathing. Vandermeer walked to the floor. He took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen. Allow me 3 minutes. He told them. 1973, he had met a young restorer named Daniel Holloway at Pebble Beach. 1989, Daniel had restored the Packard now standing in the Peterson Museum. 2017, Daniel had received the Haggerty Lifetime Achievement Award. Daniel Holloway restored 47 cars in his life. Each one carried a serial stamp under the chassis. 46 are accounted for in the Haggerty registry. He paused. The 47th. The last one. Has been missing since Daniel's death in 2019. Until last week. He turned to the Mustang. It is here. Tonight. He drew a folded sheet from inside his coat. The artistic will of Daniel Holloway, dated 2018, notarized. In it, Daniel confirmed that the 47th car had been given to his son, Wesley, and that Vandermeer was authorized to authenticate it on behalf of the family. The room went silent. Vandermeer turned back to the microphone. He looked across at Wes. The frayed flannel. The cracked boots. He gave him a small nod, the nod of one craftsman to another. I'll restate my offer. $200,000. Cash. Tonight. That is 1,000 times what the owner was told it was worth, by someone who did not know what she was looking at. His eyes went to Larry. Larry's color drained. Then Vandermeer added a sentence not in any prepared script. And to be clear. The only person in this room tonight who is dressed correctly, is the man standing next to that car. The MC, voice unsteady. $200,000. Going once. No one raised a counter. No one dared. The gavel fell. The room stood. Applause rolled across the floor. Adeline turned and looked at Wes. He looked back. He gave her one small nod. It carried everything he could not say aloud. Maple ran up and threw her arms around her father's leg. Daddy, they're not laughing at our car anymore. They're not laughing at your shirt. He crouched and held her tight. Over her shoulder he saw Adeline crying quietly. She did not try to wipe it. Larry left the hall early. He shook no hands. 2 members of the board went after him, not in support, but to ask him about the 2007 memo Marge had quietly forwarded to them earlier in the week. Adeline stood beside Wes in the corridor. Vandermeer came to say goodnight. He shook Wes's hand and held it. Your father would be proud. Not because of the money. Because of how you let the car speak for itself. He turned to Adeline. Miss Brookhart. You did the right thing. The Haggerty Foundation has a fund. I'll be in touch with you next week. She nodded. Vandermeer left. Maple was asleep on Marge's shoulder by the door. Wes spoke first. You set all of this up. I made one phone call. You called the right person. She looked at him. You were never going to sell the car. Were you? He shook his head. I don't know. I might have. If you hadn't come to the garage that day. Then why did you let it go on the floor? He thought a long time. Because my father taught me. Anything with real worth doesn't fear the light. And because there was a child upstairs who needed to see that was true. Something moved in her chest. It was not the feeling of winning. She decided to speak plainly. I humiliated you in front of this whole town, twice. About the car. About the clothes. I want to apologize properly. You just did. No. I want to apologize to both of them. The next morning she drove to Black Mountain. She brought a children's book about old cars and a handwritten letter for Maple. Maple opened the letter and read it aloud. Dear Maple. I promised you a story. Here is the first part. There is a red car in Black Mountain. Everyone who passes by thinks it's old junk. There is a man in a frayed flannel shirt. Everyone who passes by thinks he is an ordinary man. I passed by. I did not look carefully. Now I know. The most beautiful things are the ones that do not try to look beautiful. Adeline. Maple finished. She did not say anything. She ran into her room and came back with a drawing. Her father in a green-striped flannel, and a brown-haired woman beside the Mustang. The woman wore a soft green sweater. Not a white dress. Adeline took the drawing. Her hand was unsteady. Why aren't I in white in this one? Because you stopped being the white dress lady. Adeline had to turn her face for a few seconds. Wes stood in the garage doorway. Coffee. If you've got the time. It was the first time he had asked. She nodded. At the small kitchen table, Eleanor's photograph still on the shelf, they talked for nearly 2 hours, about his father. About her dissertation. About Eleanor, whose name he said softly aloud for the first time. About Adeline's divorce, 5 years before. Maple sat in the corner of the living room pretending to read. She was listening. She watched the way her father's voice changed when he spoke to this woman. Smaller than usual. Just as she had said. Before Adeline left she asked, "What will you do with the 200,000? A college fund for Maple. A small piece into the garage. New shoes for Maple. The old pair is tight. And for you. What do you need for yourself?" He looked at her. No one had asked him that question in 6 years. He did not answer. He stood and held the door open. When Adeline's car was gone, Maple ran to her father. "Daddy. Is she coming back?" "Yes. She's coming back." 2 weeks after Pinehurst. The advisory board held an extraordinary session. Marge had formally submitted the entire 2007 file. The memo where Larry had blocked the Daniel Holloway scholarship. Personal correspondence between Larry and a private broker, showing a direct financial interest in selling the working-class collection. Adeline presented to the board. She was calm. Unemotional. She put forward 2 motions. 1. Restore the Daniel Holloway Scholarship for Young Restorers, with an annual budget of $150,000. 2. Open a new permanent exhibit, American Master Craftsman, anchored by the Mustang, on indefinite loan from Wesley and Maple Holloway, with no fee taken. Larry argued hard. But Marge's documents had made the conflict of interest plain. The vote was 6-1. Larry, alone in opposition. He resigned the chairmanship on the spot. One member proposed referring the matter to the American Alliance of Museums for ethics review. Larry walked out in silence. On his way past her, he stopped beside Adeline. He started to say something. He did not. He went on. Adeline did not feel triumph. She felt relief. She called Wes that afternoon and told him the result. He was quiet for a few seconds. "Thank you. Would you come see the exhibit when it opens?" "Yes." With Maple. A month later, the American Master Craftsman exhibit opened. Small, quiet. The Mustang on a low platform under warm yellow light. Beside it, a brass plate. 1967 Ford Mustang Coupe, restored by Daniel Holloway, 2018, the 47th and final restoration of his career. On indefinite loan from Wesley and Maple Holloway, Black Mountain, North Carolina. Below the plate, Adeline had added a single line, without asking the board's permission. Some things are not for sale. They are kept, and shown, by the families who love them. Wes came with Maple. Vandermeer flew in from California. Marge stood beside them, an honored guest for the first time in many years. Adeline met them at the door in a simple navy dress. Still not white. Maple ran to her and hugged her before she said hello. Wes still wore flannel, but this one was new. Maple had picked it out for him with the money he had received. She had given him one rule. Buy something new, but it has to look exactly like the old one. He had done as told. Same blue and gray check. Same cut. Just no fray at the collar. Adeline noticed at once. She smiled, very small. In a corner, Vandermeer drew Wes aside. The Haggerty Foundation is looking for a director for its craftsman preservation program. They want someone who knows the trade from the inside. I put your name in. Wes was surprised. I don't have a degree. Your father didn't have a degree. Did he need one? Wes looked across the room. Adeline was explaining the car to Maple, point by point, the way you talk to a colleague. I have a daughter in Black Mountain. The program is in Asheville. You don't have to go anywhere. Later Wes stood under the gallery lights. Maple beside him. One hand in her father's. The other in Adeline's. For the first time in 6 years, Wes was not standing between his daughter and an empty space. 6 weeks after the opening. December. Asheville turned cold. Wes had taken the part-time directorship at the Haggerty Preservation Program. His office sat in the museum building. He kept the garage in Black Mountain. Adeline and Wes now worked under the same roof. They did not talk about it with the staff. Not because they were hiding. Because neither of them yet had a name for it. Maple came to the museum twice a week after school. Adeline had set up a corner of her office for her. A drawing table. Pencils. A notebook in which the two of them were continuing the story of the red car and the man in the flannel shirt. A Friday afternoon. The first snow of the season. Wes came to pick her up. He stopped in the doorway of Adeline's office. Maple was still drawing, not looking up. He said quietly, Saturday night. Would it be too much if you came out to Black Mountain for dinner? I can cook one thing. She looked up. The first time he had invited her to the house. Not the garage. Not a coffee shop. Yes. I'll come. Saturday evening. She arrived at 6:30. She brought a bottle of red wine and a new book for Maple. She wore a gray sweater and jeans. The first time she had worn jeans in front of him. She had thought about it for a long time. Dinner. Squash soup. Toasted bread, roast chicken. Maple sat between them. She looked Adeline up and down when she walked in. You're wearing jeans. Like Dad. Adeline laughed. I'm learning. After dinner Maple was sent to bed. Before she went into her room she came back and hugged both of them, equally, then said to Adeline, Can you sleep over? Adeline froze. So did Wes. She crouched. Not tonight, honey. But I'll come back. Many times. Okay. But not for too long. She went to her room. Wes and Adeline sat in the living room. No television. Only the fire. Are you cold? A little. He stood and added a log. He sat down closer than before. He did not touch her. She watched the fire. I got divorced because my husband told me I was too rational, too cold. You're not cold. How would you know? From the way you look at my daughter. From the way you traded the white dress for a green sweater the day we sat in the coffee shop. You noticed that. I've noticed everything about you since the day you came to the garage. The wood cracked. He laid his hand over hers. Slowly, without rushing. His hand was warm, calloused from years on engines. She did not pull her hand away. They sat like that for a long time. They did not kiss. They only held hands. I don't know what I'm doing. Neither do I. Then we go slow. Yes. Slow. She left at 11. Snow fell light on the road back to Asheville. She drove slowly. She did not turn on the radio. In the rear view the lights of his house faded. But they were still there. April of the following year. Asheville Heritage Motor Museum held its first anniversary celebration. 14 cars. 9 American craftsmen. Annual attendance up 22%. The Daniel Holloway Scholarship had been awarded to 3 young restorers, in North Carolina, in Tennessee, and in Kentucky. Wes was now the full-time director. His office and Adeline's were 3 doors apart. They had been going out together in the evenings for 6 months. They did not call them dates. Maple had grown used to Adeline being around. Adeline had grown used to having a child in her life. A Saturday morning. Wes drove the Mustang up to the gallery for its monthly check. Engines stay alive only if you let them speak. Maple sat in the passenger seat. Adeline waited in the lot. The same lot where the story had begun. Today Adeline wore a soft blue jacket. Jeans. Old boots. No white. She had let go of the white dress version of herself a long time ago. Wes parked. Same flannel. Same oil-marked jeans. Same cracked boots, the soles repaired at Maple's request. The same man, in the same place. The only difference was that no one was laughing now. Maple ran to Adeline first and took her hand. Adeline bent down, kissed the top of her head, did not let go. Wes followed. He stopped at the exact spot where she had stood that first day. Do you remember this place? I remember. What did you say? She smiled. I said, this wreck of a car, how much did you pay for it? And the clothes. I didn't say anything. I just looked at them in a way that said it. And now. She looked at the car. At Maple. At the flannel. At the boots. Now I say. I did not know what I was looking at. The car. Or the man. He held out his hand. She took it. Maple ran between them and pulled them toward the doors. Miss Adie, I finished my story. There are 3 people and 1 car. Which one am I? You're the one who saw. Finally. Inside the gallery, under the brass plate, the 3 of them stood in front of the Mustang. Maple pointed to the stamp. DH-2018-47/47. Daddy. When I'm grown up, can I put my number on the car too? He crouched. You don't have to put it on the car, honey. You put it on the things you do. On the clothes you aren't ashamed to wear. On the people you aren't ashamed to stand beside. She looked up at Adeline. Miss Addie. You're not ashamed to stand beside Dad. Are you? Adeline crouched. I'm proud, honey. Prouder than I have ever been about anything in my life. Maple stood between them, one hand in each of theirs. Some things are worth $200. Some things are worth 200,000. And some things, the rare, quiet things, in old flannel and unpolished boots, are simply worth being seen by the right person, at the right time, with the right kind of patience.